of Euro-Asian stock exchanges. My guest today is Attila, Tóth, Principal of Capital Market Development Team of EBRD. Thank you, Attila, for joining me.
Thank you, Armenuhi, for inviting me.
Today's topic is all about IPO and potential issuers. The topic came to our mind after the successful workshop series that first together with EBRD and personally with Attila we did during past several months. Very short history. We had an initiation from Attila to start a workshop for potential issuers of PAS members, and it was a great idea, and it was very much demanded topic. It occurred among our members, and thank you, Attila, for the initiation. And I think this talk, the PAS talk, will spread some light for non-PAS members to know what was it about and how it started. And my very first question from the beginning, how the idea of creating this workshop was born.
Yeah, so for EBRD, it is a key priority to develop the local capital markets in our countries of operation, from Central Europe to Central Asia and to North African countries. And it's one of the most challenging part of this task is to develop the public equity market, where private sector companies raise money from the general public via equity issuance. And it is a very complex and very sensitive ecosystem, where in many cases the biggest problem is on the issuer side, because going public and opening up the shareholding structure is simply not in the DNA of the companies in Central and Eastern Europe and in Central Asia, like in Anglo-Saxon countries, for example. And companies are full of fears and misconceptions, mainly due to lack of information. That's why it is very important to share our knowledge with as many potential issuers as possible. And our IPO workshop is very useful instrument in this respect. And I have to thank to FAS to its support. It supports our efforts and organize all these events for the members. And of course, the traveling restrictions and all the special arrangement linked to this pandemic made people very open towards online communication challenges. And it was a natural outcome, I think, that we went online with this event series. And all the logistics are so simple and cost efficient. So we can take it as a positive side effect of the pandemic.
Yes, and the feedback from workshops was very fantastic feedbacks we had from participants. After 4 workshops, we had more than 200, around 300 participants overall, and yeah, it was both useful, interesting, and very interactive. And with many information, useful information that you gave during the workshop. But what are the main challenges? So we had a lot of discussions, but what are the main challenges for the companies who want to go public at this moment?
Obviously, I think that the usual suspects here are first of all, the high cost of going public. And of course, the second is the general fear of transparency. But in my opinion, the main challenge for the candidate companies is to understand and accept the complexity of going public, because it is not a simple funding solution for them, but it is by far the most important strategic decision a company can make during its lifetime. It requires a different mindset from the owners and the management. And the preparatory phase for the IPO must not be underestimated. For example, in private companies, especially in the smaller ones, in many cases, the ownership and the management tasks and the responsibilities are fully bundled. Contrary to that, the public company needs to have a well-structured decision-making process with clear distinction between the ownership and the management responsibilities. Many companies are one-man shows among SMEs, where the founder entrepreneur is doing everything, but this is not acceptable in case of a public company. Investors expect to have a team in the company that runs the company, where everybody can be replaced. And it takes time to be prepared for all these requirements and changes. And there are a couple of other issues, of course, that needs to be addressed before going public. And although some of them seem to be painful, but in reality, all these necessary steps are not for themselves or only to meet the investors' demand. These steps at the end lead to a more efficient company setup. And that can be utilized even if at the end the company decides not to go public.
So yeah, the process has its own useful things, even if not going to the public and not having as a final stage. But what will be your advice if they want to go public, but they are afraid, just afraid?
Yes, small companies usually think that they are too small for the public market. But I have to say that there is a demand for smaller companies as well. What matters is the story, what they have to offer. If you have a good investment story, you can find your investors easily. Don't forget that large companies were also small at one time. One of my favorite examples is Intel Corporation that went public a couple of decades ago with only an $8 million transaction. So that was really a tiny transaction. Of course, it's fully understandable why there are so many fears, mainly because opening up the shareholding structure and letting strangers in the company seems to be a very risky decision. But on the other hand, and even if it sounds to be a contradiction, it is the best way for the company to keep the independence and keep the control over the company, because financial investors coming from the public capital market never want to take part in the executive decision-making process. They don't have special rights, unlike, for example, strategic owners or in many cases, the private equity funds or venture capital funds. So my advice to smaller companies is not to be ashamed by turning to a professional advisor. Stock exchange listing needs very special expertise that the companies usually don't have, but they are not alone. The investment banks, brokerage houses can be approached locally, or even the stock exchanges, because they can help the companies and lead them through the process to find the best solution for the company.
Yes, to feel that you are not alone and there are many institutions that can be helpful. This is the first thing that small companies should remember. And also during our webinars, there were many small companies attending, but also big ones, but the small ones are usually asking this question. After this successful line and series of workshops, what are your future plans in this regard? Will you continue delivering the workshop, or you are planning to go like deeper and hold offsite meetings? What are the plans within this project for you?
I think, as you mentioned, the high number of participants is the proof that there is a need for such programs. And we definitely need to continue the series, even after the traveling restrictions are lifted, I think, because it will remain the best and most cost-efficient way of meeting as many potential issues as possible. But of course, we also know that these events can give only a general overview of the issue. It can't answer all the questions, but it can help the companies, hopefully, to raise the most important questions during the process. And in reality, of course, every single company is a unique story and has very special needs. So that means that there is a room for more focused and tailor-made advisory services and assistance for especially for smaller companies, but it's true for the larger ones as well. And the EBRD has pilot projects in a couple of countries in Central Europe, called pre-listing support program, where we help selected companies to be prepared for the listing. This program covers advisory services on corporate governance, business development, and corporate strategy, and in internal financial controlling systems, with the aim of building a good investment story that can be sold later on to the investors community. And hopefully, if this concept proves to be working, then we can extend that to other countries in the future.
I think it is needed, I think. And the very last question, during the COVID and after the COVID, which has a negative impact on many aspects of business, how it impacted the IPO world? Are there any statistics available during the pandemic or after the pandemic for you? Because during the pandemic, in the beginning, everything was stopped and all IPOs were stopped, so everything was stopped. And what are the next steps there? Are there any activities after it?
Yeah, if we take a look at the statistics, we can see that 2020 witnessed the highest global IPO activity in a decade, surprisingly, maybe. Of course, the pandemic had its footprint, and because there was a slowdown in the first 2 quarters, the first half of the year. But after that, there was a strong boost in the IPO activity from the third quarter. And the volume of listings more than doubled compared to the previous year, previous quarters. And the trend is even further accelerated this year, early 2021, where the first quarter, the IPO market was the best in the last 2 decades. So it is a proof that there is money on the public capital market. It's ready, so the market is ready for new investment stories. But there are some other, I think, trends that needs to be mentioned as well here. Relatively new ones that any issuers must take a look at. And most importantly, there is the rising importance of ESG consideration, environment, social, and the governance issues, and in public disclosure and financing arrangements. So it's no matter where you are in the world or what industry you operate in. ESG has become one of the hottest topic for businesses today. The boards, the customers, and for their employees as well. So any company that wants to go public needs to focus on this issue in order to meet the investors' expectations. But all in all, I think the picture is very positive now. The IPO market is up and running, and investors are really hungry for new stories, even for smaller ones.
Thank you for this positive news. And yeah, we also know, and we also notice that the demand is very high. There is money, and the money wants to go to the companies. And there are companies who are opening up and who are not afraid of this process. And thanks to the initiatives that you and EBRD and your team are doing, this is also very helpful. From FEA's side, thanks a lot for initiating this process, and we hope we will have several other workshops with this topic, because we are receiving some more requests on this. Thank you for the talk, Attila, and stay safe.
Thank you for the opportunity. Bye.